The phone call came at 0400 hours, cutting through the desert silence like a blade. Sofia Martinez stared at her sister's name flashing on the screen, her stomach already churning with dread. In 18 months of deployment, Vanessa had never called at this hour. Never called at all, actually. "Sofia?" Vanessa's voice was shaking. "I need to tell you something, and you're going to hate me." 24 hours later, Sofia would be sitting in a military police office watching security footage of her own sister forging her signature at Henderson Auto Sales in Phoenix. But right now, in this moment before everything unraveled, she still believed her family had her back. "What's wrong?" Sofia whispered, stepping away from her bunkmates in the tent they shared at Forward Operating Base Courage in eastern Syria. "It's about your Mustang." The words that followed would change everything Sofia thought she knew about trust, family, and the price of serving your country while the people you love make decisions that could destroy your future. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. Sofia Martinez had always been the responsible one. At 23, she was the youngest of 3 siblings, but somehow she'd ended up being the family anchor. While her older brother Danny bounced between dead-end jobs and her sister Vanessa chased get-rich-quick schemes, Sofia had enlisted in the Army at 19, saved every penny, and finally bought her dream car, a pristine 2019 Ford Mustang GT in grabber blue. That car represented everything she'd worked for. Countless hours of overtime at her civilian job before enlisting, months of military pay carefully budgeted and saved. It wasn't just transportation. It was proof that a girl from East Phoenix could make something of herself through discipline and hard work. The Mustang sat in her mother's driveway in Tempe, Arizona, covered by a custom car cover Sofia had special ordered. Before deploying to Syria with the 75th Military Police Company, she'd made arrangements with painful precision. Oil change, battery tender, comprehensive insurance, and detailed instructions left with her mother about starting it weekly and taking it for short drives to keep everything in working order. "I promise, mija," her mother had said, kissing her forehead at Sky Harbor Airport. "Your baby will be waiting right here when you get home." Life at FOB Courage was a world away from the Phoenix suburbs. Sofia's days were consumed with convoy security, base patrols, and the constant vigilance required in a combat zone. She was good at her job, methodical, calm under pressure, and trusted by her fellow soldiers. Her squad leader, Sergeant First Class Williams, had already mentioned that Sofia was being considered for promotion to corporal ahead of schedule. "Martinez, you've got that rare combination of common sense and courage. The Army needs more soldiers like you." Sofia took pride in that feedback, but the praise felt hollow when measured against the growing distance from her family back home. Video calls with her mother happened sporadically due to time differences and operational security requirements. Her brother Danny had stopped responding to messages after the 3rd month, and Vanessa had become increasingly difficult to reach. When they did connect, the conversations left Sofia uneasy. Vanessa, 26 and perpetually between jobs, had a new crisis every few weeks. First, it was getting evicted from her apartment, then problems with her boyfriend Marcus, then some vague business opportunity that required just a little startup money. "I'm figuring it out, Sofia," Vanessa would say whenever she tried to offer practical advice. "Not everyone can have their whole life mapped out like you do." There was resentment in her sister's voice that Sofia pretended not to hear. She'd grown up watching Vanessa's struggle with impulsive decisions and their consequences. Getting pregnant at 17 and dropping out of high school, maxing out credit cards on clothes and nights out, quitting jobs without notice when managers asked too much of her. Sofia had learned early that loving Vanessa meant accepting the chaos that followed her everywhere. But she'd also learned to protect herself from it. That's why she'd made sure all the important paperwork was in order before deploying. Insurance policies, bank accounts, car registration, everything secured and documented so there couldn't be any confusion or complications. Her mother, Elena Martinez, worked double shifts as a nurse at Phoenix General Hospital, and raised 3 children mostly alone after their father left when Sofia was 8. Elena was reliable, but overwhelmed, focused on keeping food on the table rather than managing the complex details of adult life. Sofia understood this and had gradually taken on more family responsibilities as she'd gotten older. "You're like a little old lady sometimes," Vanessa used to tease her, always worrying about paperwork and backup plans. But Sofia's careful nature had served her well in the military. Her superiors appreciated her attention to detail, her ability to anticipate problems, and her skill at keeping equipment and personnel organized. She'd adapted to military life more easily than many of her peers, finding comfort in the clear expectations and structured environment. The weeks turned into months at FOB Courage. Sofia settled into the rhythm of deployment life. The early morning formations, the long patrols through dusty villages, the evening maintenance of vehicles and weapons. She sent money home regularly, more than she needed to, because she knew her mother was still struggling financially, and because she wanted to help however she could. In her spare time, she studied for promotion boards and took online college courses toward her criminal justice degree. Her goal was clear: finish her Army commitment, use the GI Bill to complete college, and eventually become a police detective. The Mustang waving at home was a symbol of that future, a reminder of what focused effort and delayed gratification could accomplish. She'd bought the car during her leave before deployment, driving it straight from the dealership to a professional detailing shop. She'd spent an entire weekend learning about proper car care, watching YouTube videos about paint protection and engine maintenance. The car had barely 8,000 miles on it when she left for Syria, still smelling new, still perfect. "Promise me you won't let anyone else drive it," she told her mother, handing over the keys with genuine anxiety. "And if there's any problem, anything at all, you call me immediately." Elena had laughed at her daughter's intensity. "It's just a car, Sofia." "No, Mom, it's not just a car. It's everything I've worked for." Her mother's expression had grown serious then, recognizing the weight her youngest daughter placed on this purchase. "I understand, Mija. I promise." Those promises felt increasingly fragile as communication from home became more sporadic. Sofia's emails went unanswered for days. Video calls were canceled last minute. When she did manage to connect with her mother, Elena seemed distracted, stressed about things she wouldn't fully explain. "Is everything okay with the car?" she would always ask. Yes, everything's fine," she'd respond quickly, but her eyes wouldn't quite meet the camera. Sofia told herself she was being paranoid. Deployment can make you suspicious of normal life continuing without you. Her fellow soldiers talked about it all the time. The worry that important things were happening at home while you were stuck halfway around the world, unable to help or even witness what was unfolding. But something felt wrong. Sofia's instincts, honed by months of reading dangerous situations in a combat zone, were telling her that the people she loved most were keeping something from her. She just had no idea how devastating that something would turn out to be. 3 weeks before that 0400 phone call, Sofia had tried to call Vanessa directly, only to discover her phone had been disconnected. When she asked her mother about it, Elena had been evasive. "She's having money problems again. You know how she is." "What kind of money problems?" "I don't know all the details, Mija. She'll figure it out." But Sofia knew Vanessa's pattern. Money problems led to desperate decisions. Desperate decisions led to family drama. And family drama, somehow, always seemed to fall on Sofia's shoulders to resolve. She'd increased her calls home, sensing crisis building like a storm on the horizon. But her family had closed ranks, sharing some secret burden they deemed too heavy or too shameful for their deployed soldier to carry. They were trying to protect her, Sofia would later realize, but their protection was about to become the very thing that destroyed everything she'd worked to build. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. The confession came in fragments, each word hitting Sofia like shrapnel. Vanessa's voice cracked through the satellite connection, distorted by distance and guilt. "I didn't mean for it to happen like this. Marcus said it would be temporary, just until we could get back on our feet." Sofia pressed the phone harder against her ear, stepping further away from the sleeping soldiers in her tent. Outside, the desert wind howled across the compound, but nothing could drown out what she was hearing. "What are you talking about, Vanessa? What's temporary?" "The sale. God, Sofia, we sold your car." The words didn't compute immediately. Sofia's mind rejected them, searching for alternative meanings. "You sold what?" "Your Mustang. We sold it 3 days ago to Henderson Auto Sales. I'm so sorry. I know how much you—" "What?" Sofia's voice exploded into the darkness, loud enough that Corporal Jenkins stirred in her bunk nearby. Sofia clamped her hand over her mouth, forcing herself to whisper, "You sold my car?" "Marcus knows this guy who works at the dealership. He said we could get top dollar for it, and we were so desperate. The rent was 2 months behind, and they were going to evict us, and Mom was talking about taking a third job, and I thought—" "You thought? You thought you could steal my car? It's not stealing if we're family. Marcus said we could pay you back within 6 months, maybe less if his construction job works out." Sofia felt something fundamental shift inside her chest, like a support beam snapping. This wasn't just about the car. This was about everything she'd believed about the people she loved. "How?" The word came out strangled. "How did you even do it? The title? The registration?" "Mom helped me. She had your power of attorney paperwork from when you deployed, and Marcus said that meant she could sign for you. The dealership guy, Tony something, he didn't ask too many questions when we showed up with the keys and papers." Their mother had helped orchestrate this? Sofia sank onto an ammunition crate outside the communications tent, her legs suddenly unsteady. Around her, FOB Courage hummed with its usual nighttime activity, guards walking their posts, generators maintaining power, the distant sound of helicopters preparing for early morning missions. Everything normal, everything routine, while her world collapsed 6,000 miles away. Where's the money? That's the thing. Vanessa's voice grew even smaller. Marcus had this opportunity with his friend's contracting business. They were bidding on this huge job, but they needed cash up front for equipment deposits. He said if we invested the money from your car, we could double it within a month. The pit in Sofia's stomach deepened. Please tell me you didn't. The deal fell through. The other company outbid them, and now Marcus's friend says he can't pay back the deposit money for at least 3 months, maybe 6. Sofia closed her eyes, trying to process the magnitude of what her sister was confessing. Not only had they stolen her car, they'd gambled away the proceeds on some half-baked business scheme. "How much did you get for it?" $28,000, which was actually really good because the Kelly Blue Book said $28,000. "You stole and sold my $28,000 car, then lost the money gambling on Marcus's friend's construction business?" "It wasn't gambling. It was an investment opportunity. Marcus knows about these things. Marcus is an idiot." The words erupted before Sofia could stop them. "Marcus has been unemployed more often than employed since you started dating him. Marcus convinced you to max out your credit cards buying cryptocurrency that crashed, and now Marcus has cost me everything I worked for." Vanessa started crying then, the kind of manipulative tears she'd used since childhood to deflect consequences. "You don't understand what it's like here, Sofia. You're off playing soldier while the rest of us are struggling." "Playing a soldier?" Sofia's voice dropped to a whisper that somehow carried more threat than her earlier shouting. "I'm in a combat zone, Vanessa. I risk my life every day protecting people like you, and while I'm doing that, you're stealing from me." "We're family. Family helps each other." "Family doesn't steal from each other. Family doesn't lie and scheme and forge documents." Sofia stood up, pacing in the small circle of light cast by the tent's external lamp. "Do you have any idea what this means for me? That car was my transportation, my credit history, my down payment on a future, and you gave it away for one of Marcus's fantasies? The silence stretched between them, filled only by static and Vanessa's intermittent sniffling. What did Mom say? She didn't want to do it. I had to convince her. She kept saying we should wait and ask you first, but I told her there wasn't time, that we'd lose the apartment and end up homeless. Another betrayal. But somehow, this one hurt less. Sofia could imagine her mother's anguish, caught between her children's needs and her conscience. Elena had always been vulnerable to Vanessa's crisis-driven manipulation. Where is she now? Working the double shift. She doesn't know I called you. She wanted to wait until you got home to explain everything in person. Of course, their mother was working herself to death trying to hold the family together, while Vanessa made decisions that tore it apart. I want every document, Sofia said, her military training kicking in. Sales receipt, title transfer, everything. I want Marcus's friend's contact information. I want to know exactly where my money went and exactly how you plan to get it back. I don't think Marcus's friend wants to be contacted directly. He's kind of private about his business dealings. I don't care what Marcus's friend wants. I want his name, his number, and his address. Tonight. Sofia, you're scaring me. Good. You should be scared, because what you've done isn't just theft, Vanessa. It's fraud. You forged government documents. You impersonated someone with security clearance. There are federal crimes involved here. That wasn't entirely true, but Sofia's anger was making her creative. The reality was probably simpler, a case of family theft that would be difficult to prosecute and even more difficult to recover from. You wouldn't turn in your own sister. Right now, I don't know what I'll do. Send me everything. Names, numbers, documents, receipts, everything. And then you and Marcus figure out how to get my money back. What if we can't? The question hung in the desert air like a challenge. What if they couldn't? What if Sofia's careful planning, her sacrifice, her trust in family had all been for nothing? Then you'll have to live with what you've done, and I'll have to live with what I've learned about you. She ended the call before Vanessa could respond, then sat staring at the phone in her hands. Around her, the base continued its mechanical routine, indifferent to the personal catastrophe unfolding in one soldier's life. The worst part wasn't the money, though $28,000 represented years of careful saving. The worst part wasn't even losing the car, though the Mustang had been her pride and joy. The worst part was the shattering realization that the people she loved most had been capable of this level of betrayal. Sofia had built her life on the foundation of family loyalty and personal responsibility. She'd sent money home, worried about her mother's health, covered Vanessa's emergencies more times than she could count. She'd enlisted partly to create stability for herself, but also to become someone her family could depend on. Instead, they'd seen her deployment as an opportunity, her absence as permission, her trust as a weakness to be exploited. The desert wind picked up, stirring dust around the compound. Sofia stood and walked back toward her tent, already planning her next moves. She would need to contact her bank, her insurance company, the dealership. She would need to understand her legal options and figure out how to protect what remained of her financial life. But first, she would need to decide whether the people who had raised her were still her family, or if they had become something else entirely. The answer to that question would determine everything that came next. Sofia didn't sleep that night. Instead, she sat in the communications bunker with a notebook, methodically planning her counterattack while her fellow soldiers assumed she was writing letters home. The irony wasn't lost on her. By 0600 hours, she had a list of 17 phone calls to make and a strategy that would have impressed her squad leader. Military precision applied to family betrayal. First call, her bank in Phoenix. Ma'am, I'm showing your account was accessed yesterday with proper authorization, the customer service representative explained. Your power of attorney holder withdrew the full amount from your savings account. $28,000? Yes, ma'am. The withdrawal was made in person with proper identification and documentation. Sofia's grip tightened on the phone. She'd given her mother power of attorney for emergencies, medical decisions if she were injured, access to her accounts if something happened to her, not for funding Vanessa's disasters. I need that power of attorney revoked immediately. I'll need you to come in person for that, ma'am, or send notarized documentation. I'm deployed overseas with the U.S. Army. I can't come in person. Then you'll need to work with our military liaison office. They can help coordinate the proper paperwork. Second call, Henderson Auto Sales. The receptionist transferred her to Tony Vasquez, the salesman who'd apparently handled the transaction. His voice carried the practiced smoothness of someone accustomed to bending rules for the right price. "Oh yeah, the blue Mustang. Beautiful car. Your sister and mother seemed real motivated to sell." My sister had no legal right to sell that car. Hey, look, they had all the paperwork. Title, registration, power of attorney documents. Everything looked legitimate to me. Did you verify the power of attorney was valid for vehicle sales? A pause. I'm not a lawyer, lady. They had papers. They had keys. The car was clean. We don't usually ask too many questions when people want to sell us a car in that good condition. Sofia made a note. Negligent due diligence. I need the buyer's information. I can't give out customer information. Privacy laws and all that. The car was stolen. This is a police matter now. Whoa, hold up. Nobody said anything about stolen. If there's a legal issue, you need to go through official channels. I'm not getting involved in family drama. Third call, Tempe Police Department. Detective Lisa Morrison listened patiently while Sofia explained the situation, occasionally asking for clarification or spelling. When Sofia finished, the detective sighed. This is complicated because it involves family members with some level of legal access to your affairs. Your mother did have power of attorney, and technically she could argue she was acting in what she believed were your best interests. Selling my car to fund my sister's boyfriend's business venture was in my best interests? I'm not saying it was right. I'm saying it's legally gray. The DA's office is going to look at this and see a family dispute, not a clear-cut theft case. What are my options?
File a report, which I recommend. Get everything documented officially. Then you'll need to pursue civil action to recover your losses. The criminal angle is going to be tough to prove without evidence that your mother and sister knew they were exceeding their authority. Sofia felt the first crack in her resolve. The system she'd trusted, the legal framework she'd believed would protect her, was revealing itself to be inadequate for this kind of betrayal. Fourth call, her mother. Elena's voice was thick with guilt and exhaustion when she answered. "Sofia, Vanessa told me she called you. I'm so sorry, mija." "Mom?" She kept her voice steady, professional. "I need you to explain your reasoning." She said they were going to be evicted. She was crying, saying they had nowhere to go. You know how she gets when she's desperate. "So, you decided to steal from me." "It wasn't stealing. I hoped we could replace the money before you came home. Vanessa promised it was just temporary." "You believed Vanessa's promises about money?" The silence stretched between them. Both women knew Vanessa's track record with financial promises. "I was scared," Elena finally admitted. "She said if I didn't help, she'd end up on the streets, maybe lose custody of little Diego." This was new information. What about Diego? "You didn't know?" "Vanessa's pregnant. 4 months along. She found out right after you deployed." Sofia closed her eyes. A baby. Another crisis, another complication, another person who would suffer from Vanessa's poor choices. "That doesn't justify stealing my car, Mom." I know it doesn't, but she's my daughter, and she was desperate, and I thought you'd understand. You're strong, Sofia. You always land on your feet. But Vanessa what? Gets to destroy other people's lives because she's weak?
That's not fair. What's not fair is that I'm risking my life in a combat zone while my family steals from me. What's not fair is that I trusted you with legal authority and you used it to fund Marcus's fantasies. Elena started crying then, the deep, exhausted sobs of someone who'd carried too much for too long. "How do I fix this?" she whispered. "Tell me how to fix it." "You can't fix it, Mom. The car is gone, the money is gone, and my trust is gone. The only thing you can do now is help me figure out how to recover what's possible to recover." Fifth call. JAG office at the nearest major base. Captain Sarah Chen listened to Sofia's situation with the clinical attention of someone who'd heard variations of the story many times before. Financial exploitation of deployed service members is unfortunately common. Family members often assume that military pay and benefits mean unlimited resources, and they rationalize taking advantage because he or she is serving their country. What legal recourse do I have? Several options, none of them perfect. You can pursue civil action for conversion and breach of fiduciary duty. You can file criminal complaints, though, as the detective told you, prosecution is unlikely. You can also explore military family support services that might help mediate the situation. I don't want mediation. I want my money back. I understand, but you need to prepare for the possibility that recovery may be partial at best. Civil judgments don't automatically mean people can pay them. 6th through 17th calls. Insurance company, credit monitoring services, legal aid societies, and 3 different attorneys who all wanted retainers she couldn't afford while simultaneously trying to replace the money her family had stolen. By 1400 hours, Sofia had a clearer picture of her situation, and it was worse than she'd initially thought. Her financial life had been devastated not just by the theft, but by the cascading consequences. Her credit score would suffer when she couldn't make the car payments on a vehicle she no longer owned. Her housing plans after deployment were derailed. Her path to college was compromised. But something else had crystallized during those hours of phone calls and legal consultations. Sofia Martinez was done being the family's financial safety net. She found Sergeant Williams in the motor pool, supervising maintenance on their patrol vehicles. "Sarge, I need to request emergency leave." Williams looked up from the engine he'd been inspecting. "Family emergency?" "Yes. My family stole my car while I was deployed. I need to go home and handle the legal fallout." Williams had heard enough deployment drama to not be surprised by much, but this made him wince. "Jesus, Martinez, that's rough. How much time do you need?" 2 weeks minimum, maybe more depending on how complicated this gets. "You've got the leave days saved up. I'll start the paperwork. But Sofia..." Williams paused, choosing his words carefully. "I've seen this kind of thing destroy good soldiers. Don't let your family's problems derail your career." "They won't," Sofia said, and she meant it. "But they're going to learn that there are consequences for betraying someone who knows how to fight back." That evening, Sofia called Vanessa one more time. "I'm coming home," she said without preamble. "When?" 4 days. I'll be landing at Sky Harbor on Friday afternoon." "Sofia, I'm so glad. We can sit down and work this all out as a family." "No, we can't. Because we're not a family anymore. You made sure of that when you stole from me." "Don't say that. You don't mean it." "I mean every word. When I get home, I'm going to recover every penny you took by whatever legal means necessary. I'm going to make sure this never happens to another deployed soldier. And I'm going to make sure you understand that actions have consequences." "You're scaring me again." "You should be scared, because you picked the wrong person to steal from. I'm coming home, Vanessa, and I'm bringing everything the U.S. Army taught me about strategy, tactics, and winning." The line went quiet. "I love you," Vanessa whispered. "You should have thought about that before you sold my car." Sofia hung up and began packing. The war she'd trained for was ending, but the war she'd never expected was just beginning. The Arizona heat hit Sofia like a physical blow as she stepped off the plane at Sky Harbor Airport. After 18 months in the Syrian desert, she should have been accustomed to extreme temperatures, but this felt different. Heavier, more oppressive, weighted with the gravity of what she'd come home to face. No one was there to meet her. Sofia had deliberately not told her family her exact arrival time. She needed to see the situation with clear eyes before emotions and explanations clouded her judgment. She rented a modest sedan with her emergency credit card. Ironic, considering her family had stolen the car she should have been driving home. The drive through familiar Phoenix streets felt surreal. Everything looked smaller than she remembered, more worn down. Strip malls that had seemed vibrant before deployment now appeared tired and faded. Even the mountains surrounding the valley seemed less majestic, as if her perspective had been permanently altered by combat zones and family betrayal. Her first stop wasn't home. Instead, Sofia drove directly to Henderson Auto Sales. The dealership sprawled across several acres of sun-baked asphalt, rows of used vehicles gleaming under the relentless Arizona sun. Sofia parked and sat for a moment, studying the layout with tactical awareness she'd developed overseas. Exit routes, sight lines, potential complications. Inside, the showroom buzzed with typical car lot energy. Salespeople prowled between customers, the scent of new car leather mixing with coffee and cologne. Sofia approached the reception desk wearing her dress uniform, a deliberate choice calculated for maximum psychological impact. "I'd like to speak with Tony Vasquez." The receptionist, a young woman with elaborate nail art, looked up and immediately straightened when she saw Sofia's military bearing and ribbons. "Is he expecting you?" "No, but he'll want to see me. Tell him it's about the blue Mustang he bought from Vanessa Martinez last week." Tony appeared within minutes, his practiced smile faltering when he saw Sofia. He was younger than she'd expected, maybe 30, with the kind of aggressive confidence that probably served him well in car sales, but would work against him now. "You must be the sister. I gotta say, I wasn't expecting the military angle." "Mr. Vasquez, I need information about the sale of my vehicle." "Look, like I told you on the phone, everything was legitimate. Your family had all the right paperwork." Sofia pulled out a folder she had prepared during the flight. "This is a copy of the power of attorney I granted my mother. Would you like to read the specific language about vehicle transactions?" Tony's confidence wavered as he scanned the document. Sofia watched him realize that the power of attorney was limited to emergency medical and financial decisions, not vehicle sales. "I'm not a lawyer," he said defensively. "I can't be expected to interpret every legal document." "You can be expected to verify authorization before accepting a $28,000 vehicle, especially when the person claiming ownership isn't present." "Hey, look, families sell cars for each other all the time. I see wives selling their husbands' trucks, kids selling their parents' cars. It's normal business." Sofia leaned forward slightly, using her height and military posture to create psychological pressure. What's not normal is failing to verify that the person claiming authority actually has it. What's not normal is accepting forged documents. Forged? Nobody said anything about forged. My sister signed my name to the title transfer. That's forgery. You accepted it without verification. That makes you complicit. Tony's face reddened. "You can't prove any of that." "Actually, I can." Sofia opened her folder to reveal copies of the sales documentation she had obtained through official channels. "Handwriting analysis will show that my signature was forged. The DMV records will show the power of attorney was insufficient for vehicle transfers, and your own security cameras will show you accepted the transaction without proper due diligence." This was partially bluff. Sofia hadn't yet arranged for handwriting analysis, but Tony didn't know that. "What do you want?" "I want the buyer's information. I want to know who has my car." "I can't give out customer information. Privacy laws." Sofia smiled, a cold expression she'd perfected during interrogations of suspected insurgents. "Mr. Vasquez, let me explain something about privacy laws. They protect customers from harassment, not from legitimate owners recovering stolen property.
When the police arrive with a warrant, you'll be required to provide that information anyway. The question is whether you cooperate now or after this becomes a criminal investigation.
Tony glanced around the showroom, clearly uncomfortable with the attention Sofia's uniform was drawing from other customers and staff. "Let me talk to my manager." While Tony retreated to the back office, Sofia studied the dealership's operations. She noticed the security cameras, the filing systems, the casual way staff handled documentation. Everything about this place suggested they cut corners when it was convenient. 20 minutes later, Tony returned with a heavy-set man in his 50s who introduced himself as Rick Henderson, the owner. "Ma'am," Tony explained the situation. "I understand your frustration, but we acted in good faith based on the documentation provided." Good faith would have included verifying the authority of the people selling the car. Maybe so, but the sale was legitimate under the circumstances we knew about. The car was transferred to a buyer who paid fair market value. "I want the buyer's information." "I'm prepared to provide that to law enforcement if they request it through proper channels, but I can't release customer information to private parties, even if you have a claim to the vehicle." Sofia had anticipated this response. She pulled out her phone and dialed Detective Morrison's number. "Detective, this is Sofia Martinez. I'm at Henderson Auto Sales requesting information about my stolen vehicle. The owner is refusing to cooperate." She listened for a moment, then handed the phone to Rick Henderson. "She'd like to speak with you." Henderson's expression grew increasingly uncomfortable as he listened to Detective Morrison explain the legal implications of obstruction and receiving stolen property. When he handed the phone back to Sofia, his demeanor had changed completely. The buyer was Michael Chen. He paid cash, $28,000 exactly. Here's his contact information. Sofia copied the details carefully. Michael Chen, age 34, address in Scottsdale, phone number and email address. "One more thing," Sofia said. "I want copies of all documentation related to the sale, sales agreement, title transfer, everything." "I'll need to charge you for copying." "No, you won't." Sofia's voice carried the authority she'd developed commanding soldiers in combat zones. "You'll provide those documents as part of your cooperation with a criminal investigation, and you'll do it now." 30 minutes later, Sofia sat in her rental car reviewing the sales documentation. The forged signature was obvious once she knew to look for it. Vanessa had tried to replicate Sofia's handwriting, but hadn't quite captured the precise way Sofia formed certain letters. Her phone rang. Michael Chen.
"Miss Martinez? Rick Henderson just called me. He said there's some issue with the Mustang I bought." "Mr. Chen, I'm the actual owner of that vehicle. It was sold without my knowledge or consent while I was deployed overseas." A long pause. "Are you serious?" "Completely serious. I'm a U.S. Army military police officer, currently on emergency leave to resolve this situation." "Oh, man, this is bad. I had no idea. The seller seemed legitimate. They had all the paperwork." Sofia felt a flicker of sympathy for Chen. He was clearly an innocent party, caught in her family's web of deception. "Mr. Chen, I understand you acted in good faith, but that's my car, and I need it back. I get that, I really do, but I paid $28,000 for it. I can't just give it back and lose my money. The dealership is responsible for selling you stolen property. Your legal recourse is against them, not against me. But practically speaking, where does that leave me? I've got a car I can't legally keep and no way to get my money back from a used car lot that probably doesn't have liquid assets to cover a judgment." Sofia realized this was going to be more complicated than simply confronting a buyer. Michael Chen was a victim too, in a different way. But her sympathy had limits. "Mr. Chen, I'm going to pursue every legal avenue to recover my property. I'd prefer to work with you rather than against you, but I will get my car back." "What are you proposing?" "Meet me tomorrow. Let me see the vehicle, verify its condition. We'll figure out a solution that protects both of us. And if we can't, then we'll let the lawyers figure it out. But I'm warning you, I've got more motivation and fewer resources to lose than anyone else in this situation. I will not stop until I get my car back. What are you proposing? Meet me tomorrow. Let me see the vehicle, verify its condition. We'll figure out a solution that protects both of us. And if we can't, then we'll let the lawyers figure it out. But I'm warning you, I've got more motivation and fewer resources to lose than anyone else in this situation. I will not stop until I get my car back. After ending the call, Sofia drove toward her family's neighborhood. The first test had gone better than expected. She'd established that the sale was fraudulent, identified the current holder of her property, and put pressure on all parties involved. But as she turned onto the familiar street where she'd grown up, Sofia realized the easy part was over. The real test would be facing the people who had betrayed her trust and finding a way to rebuild some version of a family from the wreckage they'd created. The house looked exactly the same, small, tidy, with her mother's garden still flourishing despite everything. But Sofia felt like a stranger approaching enemy territory, armed with legal documents and a determination to reclaim what had been stolen from her. Sofia sat in her rental car outside her childhood home for 20 minutes, watching shadows move behind the familiar curtains. Her mother's ancient Honda sat in the driveway, but Vanessa's beat-up Corolla was nowhere to be seen. Probably repossessed, Sofia thought grimly. When she finally walked to the front door, she didn't knock. This was still her home, after all, at least officially. Her key still worked. Sofia? Her mother's voice carried shock and something that might have been relief. Elena emerged from the kitchen, drying her hands on a dish towel, looking older than Sofia remembered. The guilt was written across her face like a road map. "Hello, Mom." They stood in the living room that had seen Sofia's high school graduation party, Danny's various relationship dramas, and Vanessa's pregnancy announcements. Now it would witness the systematic dismantling of their family bonds. "I wasn't expecting you until next week." "I bet you weren't." Sofia remained standing, maintaining physical and emotional distance. "Where is she?" "Vanessa? She's at Marcus's apartment. She's been staying there since everything happened." "Since she stole my car, you mean?" Elena flinched. "Sofia, please, can we sit down? Can we talk about this?" "We can talk, but I'm not sitting down. This isn't a social visit." Her mother sank onto the worn couch anyway, suddenly looking fragile in a way that might have triggered Sofia's protective instincts before deployment. Now it just looked like manipulation. "I know you're angry." "Angry doesn't begin to cover it, Mom. I'm devastated. I'm financially ruined. And I'm learning that my family thinks stealing from me is acceptable as long as they call it helping each other." "It wasn't like that. Vanessa was desperate. She said they were going to lose the apartment, that she might end up on the streets with the baby." "What baby?" Sofia's voice sharpened. "You mean the baby she's carrying with a man who has no job and no prospects? The baby that's going to grow up watching its mother make one disastrous decision after another?" Elena's eyes filled with tears. "She's trying, Sofia. She really is." "Trying what? Trying to steal from family members? Trying to gamble away other people's life savings? What exactly is she trying to do besides destroy everyone around her?" "That's not fair." Sofia pulled out her phone and began scrolling through bank statements she'd screenshot. "You want to talk about fair? Let me tell you what's fair. In the 18 months I've been deployed, I've sent home $7,000 to help with family expenses. $7,000, Mom. Money I could have used to pay down my student loans or save for my future." Elena looked stricken. "I didn't ask you to." "You didn't have to ask. That's what family does. That's what responsible people do. They help when they can. But apparently, I'm the only one in this family who understands that concept." Sofia began pacing, her military training helping her organize her thoughts despite the emotional turmoil. "Let me walk you through what Vanessa's desperate situation has cost me. $28,000 for the car, another $6,000 in loan payments I'll still owe even though I don't have the vehicle, probably $3,000 to $5,000 in legal fees to try to recover my property.
and that's just the immediate financial impact. You didn't think, period, because if you had thought, you would have realized that I'm 23 years old, and that car represented my entire net worth. You would have realized that I'm building a life based on discipline and planning, and you just destroyed years of work in one afternoon. Elena was crying openly now, but Sofia felt no inclination to comfort her. The tears were real, but they were also too late. "How do I fix this?" Elena whispered. "Tell me how to make it right." "You can't make it right. Some things can't be fixed, Mom. Some betrayals are too fundamental to repair." The words hung in the air between them like a sentence handed down by a judge. Sofia realized she meant them completely. This wasn't anger talking, it was clarity. Her phone rang. Vanessa. "Don't answer it," Elena said quickly. Sofia looked at her mother with something approaching contempt. Why? Because she's going to lie to me some more? Because she's going to try to manipulate me into feeling sorry for her? She answered the call on speaker. "Sofia, Mom said you were home. I'm so glad. I've been wanting to talk to you face to face." "Where's my money, Vanessa?" "What?" "My money. The $28,000 you stole from me. Where is it?"
"I told you, Marcus invested it in his friend's business. It's not gone, it's just tied up temporarily. Marcus's friend doesn't exist." Silence on the line. "I had Detective Morrison run a background check. There is no construction business. There is no friend. Marcus took my money to Vegas and lost it gambling. All of it." "That's not... Marcus wouldn't." "Marcus would and Marcus did. He's a compulsive gambler, Vanessa. He's been lying to you about job opportunities and business deals for months. The money is gone. All of it." "That's not... Marcus wouldn't." "Marcus would and Marcus did. He's a compulsive gambler, Vanessa. He's been lying to you about job opportunities and business deals for months. The money is gone. All of it." Sofia watched her mother's face crumble as this new information hit home. Even Elena hadn't known the full extent of the deception. "Sofia, I didn't know. You have to believe me. I had no idea." "What I believe," Sofia said with deadly calm, "is that you're so desperate to avoid taking responsibility for your choices that you'll believe any lie that makes you feel better about them." "That's not true." "Isn't it? Marcus tells you he has business opportunities, so you don't have to face the fact that you're pregnant by a loser. Vanessa tells you stealing my car is temporary, so you don't have to face the fact that you're helping her commit a felony. Everyone tells you what you want to hear, and you pretend that makes it true." "I love you, Sofia. You're my sister." "No," Sofia said, and the finality in her voice surprised even her. "I was your sister. But sisters don't steal from each other. Sisters don't lie to each other. Sisters don't destroy each other's lives and then claim it was done out of love. Please don't say that. We can fix this. We can make it right." Sofia looked around the living room where she'd grown up, taking in details she'd never consciously noticed before. The water stain on the ceiling from the roof leak that never got properly fixed, the worn carpet that should have been replaced years ago, the stack of bills on the side table that probably included notices from creditors. This house had always been a place of barely managed chaos, of crises barely averted, of good intentions undermined by poor execution. She'd assumed that was normal, that all families struggled this way. But 18 months of military discipline and structure had shown her what life could look like when people actually took responsibility for their actions. "You want to know how to fix this?" Sofia said. "Get a second job. Get a third job if you have to. Sell everything you own. Move back in with Mom and help her with expenses instead of adding to her burden. Give up the fantasy that someone else is going to solve your problems for you." "But the baby!" "The baby deserves better than parents who steal from family members to fund gambling addictions. The baby deserves parents who work multiple jobs if that's what it takes to provide stability.
The baby deserves to grow up seeing adults who take responsibility for their choices. Elena stood up suddenly. Sofia, stop. You're being cruel. I'm being honest. There's a difference. She's pregnant and scared and trying her best. Her best isn't good enough. The words exploded out of Sofia with more force than she'd intended. Her best has never been good enough, and everyone enabling her is the reason why. The room fell silent, except for the sound of Vanessa crying through the phone speaker. I worked so hard, Sofia continued, her voice dropping to a whisper. I saved every penny. I followed every rule. I served my country and sent money home and trusted the people I loved to have my back. And you threw it all away for nothing. She picked up her keys and headed for the door. Where are you going? Elena called after her. To get my car back, and then I'm going to decide whether the people in this house are worth having in my life. Sofia, wait. But Sofia was already walking away, leaving behind the desperate voices of people who had just learned that some betrayals have permanent consequences. For the first time since returning home, she felt something like peace. The breaking point had been reached, and she'd survived it. Now she knew exactly who she was dealing with and exactly what needed to be done. The war for her future was far from over, but the illusions about her family were finally, mercifully dead.
Sofia drove aimlessly through Phoenix for an hour, letting the familiar streets blur past while her mind processed what had just happened. The confrontation with her family had been necessary, but it left her feeling hollowed out, like a building after a controlled demolition. She found herself parked outside a 24-hour diner in Tempe, the kind of place where truckers and night shift workers grabbed coffee and pie. Inside, the fluorescent lighting was harsh and unforgiving, but it matched her mood perfectly. The waitress, a woman in her 50s with kind eyes and sensible shoes, refilled Sofia's coffee cup for the third time without being asked. "Rough night, honey?" Sofia looked up, realizing she'd been staring at her phone for 20 minutes without actually seeing it. Rough couple of years, actually. "You want to talk about it? Sometimes it helps to tell a stranger." Sofia almost laughed. The idea of explaining her situation to this well-meaning waitress seemed absurd, but something about the woman's genuine concern broke through Sofia's emotional armor. "My family stole my car while I was deployed overseas, sold it and gambled away the money. I just found out there's no way to get any of it back." The waitress's expression shifted from sympathy to something harder. Family? "My sister and my mother." "Lord have mercy," the woman shook her head. "That's not family, honey. That's theft with a blood relation." The simple clarity of that statement hit Sofia like a revelation. For weeks, she'd been tangled up in the complex emotions of family loyalty, trying to balance her anger with her love for people who had fundamentally betrayed her. But this stranger had cut through all of that in one sentence. "You're right," Sofia said quietly. "It is theft with a blood relation." "What are you going to do about it?" "I honestly don't know. The legal system says it's complicated because they had some authority over my affairs. The car is with an innocent buyer who paid cash. My family has no money to pay me back even if they wanted to." The waitress sat down across from Sofia, apparently deciding this conversation was worth abandoning her other tables for a moment. "Can I tell you something? My name's Rose, by the way." "Sofia." "Sofia, I've been working this diner for 12 years. You know what I've learned? People will do to you exactly what you let them do to you. No more, no less." "What do you mean?" "I mean, your family didn't just wake up one day and decide to steal from you. They've been testing boundaries for years, haven't they? Taking little things, asking for help they never paid back, making promises they never kept." Sofia thought about all the times she'd covered Vanessa's rent, all the emergencies that somehow became Sofia's responsibility, all the small betrayals she'd overlooked in the name of family harmony. "You're right. This was just the biggest version of something they've been doing all along."
And what did you do when they crossed those smaller lines? I made excuses for them. I told myself they'd learn from their mistakes. I kept helping because I thought that's what families do. Rose nodded knowingly. And they learned, all right. They learned that Sofia would always clean up their messes. They learned that there were no real consequences for hurting you. So what do I do now? You teach them different. You show them that stealing from you costs more than they're willing to pay. Sofia felt something shift inside her chest, like tumblers falling into place in a lock. Rose was right. The problem wasn't just this one theft. It was years of enabling behavior that had led inevitably to this moment. But how? The money is gone. The car is with someone who paid for it legitimately. The legal system won't help. The legal system is just one tool, honey. You're thinking like a victim instead of thinking like a soldier. Sofia straightened unconsciously. What do you mean? You're military, right? I can tell by the way you sit, the way you talk. In the military, when someone attacks your position, do you just file a complaint and hope someone else fixes it? No, you counterattack. You make the cost of attacking you higher than any potential benefit. Exactly. So what would a military counterattack look like in this situation?
Sofia's mind began working in a new direction, applying tactical thinking to her family crisis. What were her objectives? What resources did she have? What were her opponent's vulnerabilities? I need to think about this differently, she said slowly. I've been trying to recover what I lost, but maybe I should be focused on making sure they lose more than they gained. Rose smiled. Now you're thinking like someone who won't be stolen from again. Sofia pulled out her notebook and began making lists, the way she'd been trained to plan military operations. Assets, objectives, courses of action, potential obstacles. Her phone buzzed. A text from Michael Chen, the man who'd bought her car. Ms. Martinez, I've been thinking about our conversation. Can we meet tomorrow? I have an idea that might help both of us. Sofia stared at the message, and suddenly pieces began clicking together in her mind. Rose, what if I told you that the innocent buyer of my car was willing to work with me? I'd say that's an opportunity. What kind of work? I don't know yet, but Michael Chen paid cash for a car that turned out to be stolen. He's potentially out $28,000 unless he can recover it from the dealership or my family. And your family has no money to pay him back. Right, but the dealership, they facilitated the sale of stolen property. They didn't do proper due diligence. They might be liable. Sofia's mind was racing now, seeing possibilities she'd missed before. What if Michael and I combined forces? What if instead of being adversaries fighting over the same car, we became allies going after the people who put us in this situation? That's smart thinking. Two victims with legitimate claims are harder to dismiss than one. Sofia started typing notes rapidly. Henderson Auto Sales has insurance. They have assets. They have a reputation to protect. If Michael and I both file claims against them, if we can prove they were negligent in accepting the sale, they might be willing to settle rather than face prolonged litigation. And your family? Sofia's expression hardened. My family learns that their actions have consequences that extend beyond just hurting me. If the dealership goes after them for recovery, if there are legal complications that follow them for years, maybe they'll think twice before stealing from anyone else. She pulled out her phone and called Detective Morrison. Detective, it's Sofia Martinez. I have new information about my case, and I think I have a strategy that might actually work. 20 minutes later, Sofia hung up with a much clearer picture of her options. Detective Morrison had confirmed that if Sofia and Michael Chen filed a joint complaint, it would strengthen the case significantly. Two victims with documented losses would be harder for prosecutors to dismiss as a family dispute. More importantly, the detective had revealed something Sofia hadn't known. Henderson Auto Sales had been flagged before for questionable documentation practices. A joint complaint might trigger a broader investigation into their business practices. The key, Detective Morrison had explained, is showing a pattern of negligence rather than just one incident.
If we can establish that the dealership routinely accepts suspicious sales, the DA might be interested in pursuing charges. Sofia called Michael Chen back. Mr. Chen, this is Sofia Martinez. You said you had an idea. I've been doing some research on Henderson Auto Sales. Turns out they've been sued 3 times in the past 2 years for similar issues, accepting cars with questionable paperwork, not verifying ownership properly. I think we might have grounds for a lawsuit. I was thinking the same thing. What if we work together instead of against each other? I'm listening. You file a claim against Henderson for selling you stolen property. I file a claim for facilitating the theft of my car. We coordinate our legal strategies and share information. We make this more expensive for them than just cutting us both checks. And your family? Sofia felt that cold clarity settling over her again. My family faces the consequences of their choices. If Henderson goes after them for recovery, that's not my problem anymore. They made their decision when they stole from me. I like it. When do we start? Tomorrow morning. I'll pick you up at 9, and we'll go look at my car together. Then we'll pay another visit to Henderson Auto Sales, this time with a unified strategy. After hanging up, Sofia realized something had fundamentally changed during her conversation with Rose and the subsequent phone calls. She'd stopped thinking like a victim trying to recover from a betrayal and started thinking like a strategist planning a campaign. Her family had taught her a valuable lesson. Blood relations didn't guarantee loyalty, and enabling bad behavior only ensured more of it. But Sofia had learned something they hadn't counted on. 18 months of military training had taught her how to fight back more effectively than they could imagine. The breakthrough wasn't getting her car back or recovering her money. The breakthrough was realizing that she had the power to ensure this never happened to her again, and to make sure her family understood the true cost of their betrayal. Tomorrow, the real counterattack would begin.
The next morning, Sofia met Michael Chen at his Scottsdale apartment complex. He was waiting in the parking lot beside her Mustang, and seeing it hit her harder than she'd expected. The car looked exactly as she'd left it, pristine, powerful, perfect, but everything else had changed. Michael was younger than she'd imagined, probably late 20s, with the clean-cut appearance of someone who worked in tech or finance. When he saw her approaching, his expression was apologetic but determined. "It's beautiful," Sofia said quietly, running her hand along the hood. "You've taken good care of it." "I've barely driven it. After your call, it didn't feel right." He handed her the keys. "Why don't you take it for a drive? See how it feels." Sofia slid into the driver's seat and immediately felt the cruel irony of the situation. The car still smelled like her, the vanilla air freshener she'd installed, the leather conditioner she'd used religiously. But she was now technically sitting in a vehicle that belonged to someone else, purchased with money stolen from her savings. "This is surreal," she said as Michael got into the passenger seat. "I can't imagine. I've only owned it for a week, and I'm already attached. You had it for how long?" 2 years. Saved for 3 years before that to buy it. Sofia started the engine, and the familiar rumble made her chest tight. This car was supposed to be waiting for me when I got home from deployment. Instead, it's evidence in a theft case. They drove in silence for a few minutes before Michael spoke again. "I did some more research last night. Henderson Auto Sales has been operating under a cloud for months. The Better Business Bureau has multiple complaints, and there's talk that the state's investigating their licensing." "What kind of complaints?" "Exactly what happened to us. Accepting vehicles with questionable paperwork, not verifying ownership, turning a blind eye when sellers can't produce proper documentation." Sofia felt a familiar tactical excitement building. So this isn't an isolated incident, it's a pattern of business practices. Exactly, and that makes our legal position much stronger. They pulled into the parking lot of a law office in North Phoenix. Sofia had spent 3 hours the night before researching attorneys who specialized in consumer fraud and auto theft cases. Jennifer Walsh had the most impressive track record and had agreed to meet with them on short notice. Walsh was a sharp-eyed woman in her 40s who listened to their story without interruption.
taking notes in precise handwriting. When they finished, she sat back and studied them both. You have an interesting case. Individually, either of you would face significant challenges. Together, you have something much more compelling. What do you mean? Sofia asked. Mr. Chen, your claim against Henderson is straightforward consumer fraud. They sold you property they should have known was stolen. Ms. Martinez, your claim is more complex because of the family element, but when combined with Mr. Chen's case, it establishes a clear pattern of negligent business practices. What are our chances? Michael asked. Better than you might think. I've been tracking Henderson's activities for 6 months. You're the 4th and 5th clients who've come to me with similar stories. The difference is that you two are willing to work together instead of fighting each other. Walsh pulled out a thick file. Here's what I propose. We file a joint lawsuit against Henderson Auto Sales for consumer fraud, negligent business practices, and facilitating theft. We also file complaints with the State Licensing Board and the Better Business Bureau. What about criminal charges? Sofia asked. That's separate, but the civil action will strengthen the criminal case. When the DA sees that Henderson has a pattern of this behavior, they're more likely to pursue charges. And my family? Walsh's expression grew serious. That's where things get complicated. Your sister and mother will likely face criminal charges for fraud and theft. The power of attorney issue makes prosecution easier than I initially thought. I've reviewed the documents, and they clearly exceeded their authority. Sofia felt no satisfaction in hearing this, only a grim acknowledgement of necessity. What happens to them?
Probably probation and restitution orders, assuming they have no prior criminal history. But restitution orders are only useful if the defendants have assets or income to garnish. They don't. Then the orders become permanent financial anchors. They'll carry those debts for years, potentially affecting their credit, employment, housing applications. The consequences will follow them much longer than any jail time would. After 2 hours of detailed legal planning, Sofia and Michael left the attorney's office with a clear strategy and a grim understanding of what lay ahead. The ultimate challenge wouldn't be recovering the car or the money. It would be following through on a course of action that would fundamentally alter multiple lives. Are you sure about this? Michael asked as they sat in Sofia's Mustang outside the law office. Once we file these lawsuits, there's no going back. Your family is going to face serious consequences. Sofia stared through the windshield at the Phoenix skyline, thinking about Rose's words from the diner. People will do to you exactly what you let them do to you. They made their choice when they stole from me, she said finally. Now they get to live with the consequences. Her phone rang. Vanessa. Sofia, please, I need to talk to you. Something's happened. What now? Marcus is gone. He took what little money we had left and disappeared. I think he might have gone back to Vegas. Sofia felt Michael watching her reaction. This was the test. Would she fall back into old patterns of rescuing her sister, or would she hold the line she'd drawn? That's unfortunate, Vanessa, but it's not my problem. Sofia, I'm pregnant and alone. I have nowhere to go. You have Mom. Mom can't afford to support me and a baby. You know that. Then maybe you should have thought about that before you stole my car to fund Marcus's gambling addiction. I didn't know about the gambling. You have to believe me. Sofia closed her eyes, recognizing the familiar manipulation. The crisis that was suddenly urgent, the claim of innocence despite overwhelming evidence, the implicit demand that Sofia sacrifice herself to solve problems she hadn't created. Vanessa, let me be very clear about something. In 2 hours, I'm filing a lawsuit against Henderson Auto Sales. As part of that lawsuit, they're going to pursue criminal charges against you and Mom for fraud and theft. Detective Morrison is presenting the case to the prosecutor's office tomorrow morning. Silence on the line. You're going to have criminal charges filed against your own sister? I'm going to hold you accountable for stealing from me. What happens after that is up to the legal system. Sofia, please, I'm begging you, don't do this. Think about the baby. And there it was, the ultimate manipulation. The innocent grandchild who would suffer if Sofia pursued justice. The emotional blackmail designed to make Sofia responsible for consequences she hadn't created.
I am thinking about the baby, Sofia said, her voice steady. I'm thinking that child deserves to grow up in a world where actions have consequences. I'm thinking that child deserves parents who take responsibility for their choices instead of blaming everyone else. You're destroying our family. No, Vanessa. You destroyed our family when you chose to steal from me. I'm just refusing to pretend it didn't happen. Sofia hung up and turned to Michael. Let's go file those papers. Are you okay? I'm better than okay. For the first time since this started, I know exactly who I am and what I stand for. They drove to the courthouse in silence, Sofia's Mustang carrying them toward a confrontation that would determine not just the recovery of stolen property, but the fundamental question of whether Sofia would continue to enable destructive behavior or finally draw permanent boundaries. As they walked up the courthouse steps, Sofia's phone buzzed with text messages from her mother, her brother, even some cousins she barely spoke to. Word was spreading through the family network that Sofia was betraying them by pursuing legal action. But Sofia felt only clarity. She'd spent years trying to hold her family together through loyalty and financial support. She'd sacrificed her own needs to cover their mistakes and enable their poor choices. And in return, they'd stolen her future and gambled it away without a second thought. The ultimate challenge wasn't legal, it was emotional. Could she follow through on consequences, even when everyone she'd ever loved was telling her she was wrong? Could she choose her own future over family pressure? As she handed the lawsuit papers to the court clerk, Sofia realized she already had her answer. The scared, guilty girl who used to rescue her family from their own mistakes was gone. In her place stood a woman who understood that love without boundaries wasn't love at all. It was enabling. The war for her future was almost over, and for the first time since coming home, Sofia was certain she was going to win.
6 months later, Sofia stood in the parking lot of Henderson Auto Sales watching a "business closed by state order" sign being installed by officials from the Arizona Department of Transportation. The investigation that began with her and Michael's lawsuit had uncovered a network of fraudulent practices that extended far beyond stolen vehicles. Her phone buzzed with a text from Michael. "Just got the final settlement check, $32,000. Not bad for a car I owned for 8 days." Sofia smiled, typing back, "Justice served with interest." The legal victory had been more complete than anyone expected. Henderson Auto Sales faced criminal charges, lost their dealer license, and paid out over $200,000 in settlements to various victims. Tony Vasquez was facing fraud charges that would likely end his career in auto sales permanently. But the real transformation wasn't measured in dollars recovered or businesses shut down. It was measured in the person Sofia had become and the life she'd built from the ashes of family betrayal. Detective Morrison approached from across the parking lot, her expression carrying the satisfaction of a case well closed. "Thought you might want to see this," she said, handing Sofia a folder. "Final disposition on your family's criminal charges." Sofia scanned the documents. Vanessa had pleaded guilty to fraud and received 2 years probation, 200 hours of community service, and a restitution order for $28,000. Elena had received similar terms, but with reduced community service due to her age and lack of prior criminal history. "The restitution orders are permanent," Morrison explained. "They'll follow them for life if necessary, and with their current financial situation, they'll be paying it off for decades," Sofia finished. "If they pay it off at all. Your sister gave birth 3 weeks ago, by the way, a daughter. She's living with your mother, both of them working minimum wage jobs." Sofia felt a brief pang of something that might once have been guilt, but it passed quickly. She'd learned to distinguish between consequences and cruelty, between boundaries and abandonment. "How do you feel about all this?" Morrison asked. "Responsible," Sofia said after thinking for a moment. "Not for their situation, but for my own choices. For the first time in my life, I feel responsible for my own future instead of everyone else's problems." Sofia's new apartment was a modest 1-bedroom in Chandler, furnished simply but entirely by her own choices. No hand-me-down furniture carrying family history, no decorations chosen to please other people's tastes. Every item reflected her own preferences and her own financial decisions.
The Mustang sat in the assigned parking space, legally and unquestionably hers again. The settlement money had not only restored her savings, but provided a foundation for the future she'd always planned. She was enrolled in Arizona State University, using her GI Bill to study criminal justice with a focus on financial crimes. Professor Williams, not to be confused with her former squad leader, had become an unexpected mentor. A former prosecutor who specialized in family financial abuse, she'd taken a special interest in Sofia's case study for her senior thesis on deployed service member victimization. "Your case is textbook," Professor Williams had told her. "Family members with limited power of attorney exceeding their authority, dealerships failing due diligence, and victims having to choose between family loyalty and legal justice. But what makes your case unique is how comprehensively you documented everything and how strategically you pursued multiple avenues of recovery." Sofia's thesis had evolved into something larger, a guide for military personnel on protecting their assets during deployment and recognizing signs of family financial abuse. The base legal office had already expressed interest in using her research for educational programs. Her phone rang. Danny, her brother, calling for the first time since she'd filed the lawsuit. "Sofia, it's Danny." "I know. What do you want?" "I wanted to see if... I was wondering if we could talk, maybe meet for coffee." Sofia felt no automatic rush to accommodate him, no immediate assumption that his request deserved her time. 18 months ago, she would have dropped everything to help repair family relationships. Now she evaluated the request like any other demand on her resources. About what? About everything. About Mom and Vanessa, about what happened, about whether there's any way to fix this. Fix what, exactly? Our family. Look, I know what they did was wrong. I didn't know about it until afterward, but I know it was wrong. I just think maybe there's a way to move forward. Sofia felt no automatic rush to accommodate him, no immediate assumption that his request deserved her time. 18 months ago, she would have dropped everything to help repair family relationships. Now she evaluated the request like any other demand on her resources. About what? About everything, about Mom and Vanessa, about what happened, about whether there's any way to fix this. Fix what, exactly? Our family. Look, I know what they did was wrong. I didn't know about it until afterward, but I know it was wrong. I just think maybe there's a way to move forward.
Sofia walked to her apartment window, looking out at the Phoenix skyline. In the distance, she could see South Mountain, where she used to hike as a teenager when family drama became overwhelming. Those mountains had represented escape then. Now, they represented permanence, stability, the enduring landscape of her chosen home. "Danny, let me ask you something. In the 6 months since this happened, have you helped Mom and Vanessa deal with the consequences of their choices?" "I've tried, but..." "Have you gotten a second job to help with expenses? Have you moved in to help with the baby? Have you taken any concrete action to address the crisis they created?" "It's complicated, Sofia. I've got my own problems." "Everyone has their own problems. The difference is that some people solve them without stealing from family members." She could hear Danny's frustration through the phone. "So that's it? You're just done with all of us?" "I'm done enabling all of you. There's a difference. Mom asks about you every day. She cries, Sofia. She knows she messed up, but she misses you. Mom had 6 months to reach out to me directly. Instead, she sent you to test the waters. That tells me she's still not ready to take full responsibility for her choices. What would it take? What would you need to see to consider having a relationship with us again?" Sofia considered the question seriously. It wasn't one she'd allowed herself to think about often, too focused on building her new life to dwell on the old one. "Genuine accountability," she said finally. "Not explanations about why they did it or promises that it won't happen again. Accountability means accepting that their choices had consequences and working every day to address those consequences without expecting me to help. And then what? And then, maybe, someday, we could have some kind of relationship. But it would be different. It would have boundaries. And I would never again put family loyalty ahead of my own well-being." After hanging up, Sofia sat in her small living room thinking about the conversation.
For the first time since coming home, she'd felt no anger toward her family, no desperate sadness about their estrangement. She felt something closer to indifference, which seemed like its own kind of progress. Her laptop chimed with an email from the Army Reserve Coordinator. Sofia had decided to continue her military service part-time while completing college, finding purpose in the structure and mission that civilian life sometimes lacks. Specialist Martinez, the email read, "We have an opening for a part-time instructor position in our financial readiness program. Given your background and your recent research, we believe you'd be an excellent fit. Please contact me if you're interested." Sofia smiled, recognizing the opportunity to turn her painful experience into something useful for other service members. Teaching deployed soldiers how to protect their assets and recognize family financial abuse would give meaning to everything she'd endured. Her phone buzzed with a text from Rose, the diner waitress who'd become an unexpected friend and mentor. They met for coffee every few weeks, Rose sharing the wisdom of someone who'd navigated decades of difficult family relationships. "How did court go today?" Rose's message read. "Henderson's closed permanently. Justice served," Sofia typed back. "And how do you feel?" "Like I'm finally living my own life instead of everyone else's. That's the best revenge of all, building something they can't take from you." Sofia looked around her apartment, at the diploma she'd soon earn, at the car she'd fought to recover, at the future she was building through her own choices and discipline. Rose was right. The best revenge wasn't punishment. It was becoming someone who couldn't be victimized again. Her family had taught her a harsh but valuable lesson. Love without boundaries wasn't love at all. It was enabling. They'd forced her to choose between loyalty and self-respect, between family harmony and personal integrity. She'd chosen herself, and for the first time in her life, that choice felt not selfish, but necessary. Outside her window, the Phoenix sun was setting over the mountains, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple. Tomorrow, Sofia would wake up in a life entirely of her own making, accountable to no one but herself, responsible for no one's choices but her own. The war for her future was over, and she had won completely.
Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hits the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.